Hi everyone. So yeah, as Sarah says, Farzana's stuck in transit from the town hall meeting, so you're with me for today's presentation. So this is to talk about our proceedings paper, which is presenting an educational framework for organising Wikipedia editathons for computational biology. And you may have seen presentations about Wikipedia here before. But just as a refresher, Wikipedia is the world's most accessed knowledge platform. So it's what we call an open educational resource. It's free to access, it's free to use for whatever educational purpose you might want. It's free to remix and redistribute. And in terms of computational biology, we see a lot of monthly views on related pages. So we have the example of bioinformatics.
Sorry, I have to interrupt. There is no sound online.
Oh,
sorry. Continue the presentation. Okay, I know what I'm gonna do. Sorry. You go.
Okay. Is that okay? So it's viewed fairly often. So here we have the example of the bioinformatics article, which is viewed tens of thousands of times a month. And often in low and middle income countries, we see that beginner learners rely on Wikipedia as a source of educational information. So that would be their first port of call. And sometimes that's their only open educational resource. And what we're focusing on in recent years is this kind of knowledge gap that we have between English and non-English languages in open science and in Wikipedia in particular. So, for example, we have around 1,600, 1,700 articles that have been tagged as relating to computational biology in English Wikipedia, but only, so let's rephrase that, 44% of computational biology articles are missing from non-English Wikipedias. And there's a clear cognitive tax on students whose native language is not English to try and work with this. And on top of that, the quality and the completeness of these articles in non-English languages varies dramatically. So we can attempt to change that. And here we're introducing the Wikipedia editathon tailored for computational biology. So we heard a little bit about hackathon events this morning. An editathon is very much in a similar vein. So it's a very short, intensive, focused event where people are editing and updating and improving articles relating to computational biology. So we've developed a framework to try and help educators run these events and organize these events in order to try and bridge these gaps and improve computational biology content. So I'm going to direct you to the paper at the end, but today's session is briefly going to describe the framework and show impact in action. So this is the kind of main first figure from the paper. This is kind of the steps that we've identified in organizing and running an editathon for computational biology education. I'm not going to go into detail on all of these boxes, but we've kind of split things up. So in green are tasks for organizers. Blue is very much from the participant's perspective. So we kind of identify different organizational roles. So we say that an effective organizational team requires both editing facilitators, so people who are savvy with Wikipedia, that are comfortable with editing Wikipedia, able to answer questions that students might have. Subject matter experts, so people who are going to select lists of articles that are relevant and most useful for and also communicators, so people who will get in touch with potential participants and promote the editathon more widely, so on mailing lists or social media, for instance. In terms of the participants' point of view, we suggest a pre-editathon workshop to get people used to editing in the Wikipedia system. And then we found that 2 weeks kind of in advance of an in-person day is quite an effective time to let people get used to the system and start making their own edits. The final kind of on-site editathon obviously has these editing facilitators present and able to help with any questions that students might have. So in terms of choosing which articles are most impactful to edit, we've been very lucky to have the assistance of it mostly works in Wikidata these days, but a developer, Tiago Lubiana, who's developed this web tool which identifies articles which are missing in non-English languages. So the idea here is that you can choose your language of interest, so Spanish or Portuguese or whatever, and then that makes a series of calls to the Wikimedia system and says and returns a list of articles which are available in English Wikipedia, but not in the language of choice. And so again, I'm going to direct you to the paper for more details on that. But we found that this is very effective in the case study that we have in the paper, which is an editathon that was carried out in collaboration with ISMB Latin America at the end of last year. And the aim with this event was to enhance computational biology articles in Spanish and Portuguese Wikipedias. So relative to the number of Spanish and Portuguese speakers, these Wikipedias are very underrepresented compared to English Wikipedia. So for this particular event, we had an 8-person organizational team, and as I say, they started about 3 months before the event. And we had 54 participants registered, most coming from Mexico, but other Latin American countries represented as well. And participants could work either as teams or individually. And as a result of the edits that were made during this event, we had 21 articles that were claimed that people were working on. In the end, we had 10 articles which were either created from scratch or edited and improved on their current status. And the kind of winning article, the one that was kind of developed the most, was metabar coding, which had consistently high performance across all the categories for assessment. And as a result, the Spanish Wikipedia overtook Arab Wikipedia in terms of the computational biology coverage. So this graph in the center shows the percentage of English computational biology articles that are available in each of these languages. So Spanish has just crept above Arabic. So in the paper, we frame editathons as educational environments. We find that the best articles are written collaboratively, so people working as teams tended to write better when they were working together, and that kind of fits with known the educational literature. There's also been a trend to incorporate Wikipedia-based writing events in classroom settings, and that's an example of authentic learning. So we find that this has been useful as well. The writing to learn model to promote editor learning through kind of absorbing facts and then rewriting for a simplified audience via Wikipedia, we find has been really useful for deepening the understanding of the trainees and retaining concepts when it comes to later examinations. And as it says at the bottom, this is aligning with several of the ISCB's core competencies, which you're probably aware of already. So communicating meaningfully with a range of audiences, continuing professional development in bioinformatics, and working in teams to accomplish a common goal. So this is really useful for kind of broadly developing trainee competencies. So just to conclude then, we see that editathons have a unique role to play in educational settings. The paper has this first version of an organizational framework, which I hope you'll look into. I think it's very valuable. And the results of this Latin American editathon kind of demonstrate the impact of this on a very short time scale. We can make a large impact to open educational resources. So just to finish up, this is a link to the proceedings paper. We've got a bunch of thank yous to the ISCB Wikipedia committee. Diane from the ISCB has been really helpful as well. The Student Council and the regional student group in Mexico that helped to run the editathon were fantastic as well. So I'm going to leave it there, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alistair. Do you have some questions?
Is there any value to like using some tool like maybe even ChatGPT to generate like initial translations of existing materials to speed up the process? And do you think that apart from Wikipedia, because like there is this other open access platform for science in particular, they have good things for chemistry and physics. I'd have to ask ChatGPT. I'm sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, the excuse me, the ChatGPT question is becoming a feature of every talk now. Yeah, there is for sure value in that in kind of generating an initial draft, and we do mention in the paper that people have suggested using that as a translational thing, with a couple of caveats that. There's organizations often have kind of their own take on what can be used as like textual submission. So the ISCB kind of says to not use that when you're writing for them. And Wikipedia also kind of say it's a new technology. They're waiting to kind of see the impact of generative AI on text before they'll make a further decision. But I think in terms of an initial draft, I think it's a very valuable sort of thing. I guess the other thing to bear in mind there is that bioinformatics and computational biology have a lot of kind of new terms and new words that are not necessarily part of their training model. So as a first draft, yes, but I think it would need further revision after that.
Yeah. The other thing I just remembered, without really looking it up, editathons.
Okay.
There's a whole family.
Perfect. I'll check that. Thank you.
So I'll have to go for my second question because you stole the first one, which was obvious. I was wondering about the percentage of new entries with respect to the translated entries. I mean, how do you choose which ones to do first? And
yeah, so there's content assessment systems that are part of Wikipedia already, and as well as kind of assessing the quality of each article, there's also an assessment on the importance of the articles to computational biology. So we tend to use that as a measure of how vital these things would be in other languages. It's a little bit subjective, but as a system, that's the best that we have at the moment.
The moment's probably passed, but I was going to go back to the translation challenge actually, because we've played a lot with this in the context of the CabanaNet project, where we translate many of our e-learning courses, actually usually from Spanish into English, because the writers of them are
Right.
native Spanish speakers. And we found that just using Google Translate was pretty effective, actually. But you always need a native speaker to check it. And does anybody know what the automatic translation of the BLAST algorithm is in Spanish? It's explosion.
Any other questions? Oh, we got one at the back.
Following what you say on a specific scientific term, I have the question of how do you handle when the term is not existing in the language and it's a new term that has been to be created? How you do that?
I'm not personally. I'm not sure. I think there's an element of kind of translating these things literally, which we need to be careful of, as we've just seen. That's probably for another kind of native speaker to address rather than myself.
So as a follow-up to that question, do you get a lot of Wikipedia community corrections when you get it wrong?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Or even when you get it right sometimes. Yeah, they'll be quick to correct you, for sure. Yeah.
I was just going to add, as a Spanish speaker who learned bioinformatics in Spanish, the terms that don't exist in the language, they just leave them in English. So I just learned the word in Spanish for the BLAST algorithm. I learned that as BLAST. So there's a lot of crossover, at least with Spanish in particular, and in Mexico, of just like getting the terms in English. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's probably important that we consider the kind of the improvements that these tools are making. You know, even just within the 6 months since we wrote the paper, there's probably been a large amount of improvement since then. So yeah, it's definitely one to watch.
And with that, I think we need to say thank you very much to Alistair.
Awesome. Thank you.